Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of Sights on Sinnoh. My name is William, and I'm here with JM. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing all right, getting through. Been a busy week, but summer's here. It's getting hot. Trying to see when I can hit the beach. How are things on your neck of the wood?
Also really hot. So we've had like over a month of rain and that's all burned off this week. So
Oh
it's just
no!
incredibly dry heat now.
I really wish we could get some rain here, but it's Southern California, so I'm
Not
gonna,
happening.
yeah, that's gonna be a big no on our end. But yeah, for anyone tuning in for the first time, Sights on Sinnoh is a Diamond and Pearl anime podcast that is kind of set for you to catch up on the anime and hear our thoughts on these episodes from the Diamond and Pearl season titled Diamond and Pearl. So it's just a little confusing, but we are gearing up for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl coming out later this year. And I don't think I got to ask you this last time, JM, but we did get some release dates, and I want to know your thoughts on them.
I am excited. I don't remember the dates off the top of my head, but there's only like 2-3 months between.
Yes, I think one's in November, and then Legends of Arceus, the new, still not very informative game, is set to be released in January of 2022.
Right. I think a lot of people are concerned that it's going to be like really close release between the two. I have a feeling that there's going to be some link between them, and like the idea is that Game Freak wants the two games to be relevant and sort of played simultaneously. So I don't think it's too bad of an idea. Judging by how long Snap lasted, um, I think it'll be pretty similar with the remakes. As it's more of something just to tide us over until Legends comes out.
Yeah, I'm very curious about what that means for a possible next generation as well, that these games are so close together, and if that means that they're gearing up for like a regular release of the next gen in the fall of 2022. That would be like 3 years since we got Gen 8, and this doesn't seem to be replacing any plans that they have for a holidays release that we get with some of the Pokemon games, or at least that we got with Sword and Shield.
Right.
But one thing that I'm curious about with the remakes is if contests will be any different, because I enjoy contests, but have now been more frustrated with them recently, given that I'm trying to do a ribbon quest starting in Emerald, and the contest there, it's a lot of RNG. But I finally got through them, and now I'm stuck in Battle Tower. But I feel like contests in the Sinnoh games were an improvement. So I want to know, generally, what's your experience with contests in the games and the anime, anywhere else?
Did contests when I first played through the games. I didn't pay too much attention to them. I have a shiny Crobat currently in my DS games that I caught when I was a kid in Emerald, which I didn't realize
Ooh.
was difficult to do. I mean, I knew shinies were rare. I didn't know Emerald had the weird like frame issue. Like the RNG is just completely broken, making it like impossible to shiny hunt in that game.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's like a hidden value associated with your trainer. It's like a secret ID or something. It basically determines like what frame a shiny can appear on. It's really weird.
Okay.
So it's like not easy to shiny hunt in that game. But I have a shiny Crobat. Got it as a Zubat in Meteor Falls, and I did some ribbons with it as a kid. That was my like first playthrough of Emerald. I did some contests there. I didn't really do them in Gen 4. I mostly did them when I played through Ruby and Emerald. So I'm not like super familiar with them, and I've never played Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. So I haven't really tried contests in a long time. I do want to get back to it eventually with my Crobat in my copy of Pearl that I have.
Got it. Nice. Yeah, I think Oras has the easiest approach to contest because in the previous generations you had to rely on Pokeblock or Poffins, as we have already touched on in this anime a bit, to boost the different stats of your Pokemon in terms of cuteness, toughness, beauty, etc. And those had a limit on them. Like you could only feed your Pokemon so many Poffins slash Pokeblocks before you maxed out. And that got really annoying if you want to do all of the categories. But in ORS, they removed that limit. So that makes it a lot easier and hopefully better time for people trying to do a ribbon quest all the way through that gen. But yeah, it's a very cool portrayal of contests in the anime that gets me more excited to do it in the games. And we'll jump
Right.
into that as we get to the second part of this two-part episode. But starting off on this one, I'll give a quick summary of getting the pre-contest tithers, episode 26 of Diamond and Pearl. Have to say that with a straight face. Don't know why they named it that way. But with time running out before the start of the Floaroma Town Pokemon Contest, Dawn and Pachirisu are getting in as much training as they can. But it's not just Ash and Brock who are watching from the sidelines, because Dawn's friend Kenny is here to compete in the contest too. So this is where we get an introduction of a new character who actually does know Dawn because they're both from Twin Leaf Town. And right before we get to this moment, one thing that I really liked was Pachirisu and Pikachu working together to improve how Pachirisu discharges electricity.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and it sort of gives Pachirisu like a mentor, like someone who is at least a bit more skilled. Pikachu's ambiguous level at this point aside, but it gives Pachirisu someone to look up to that's not part of Dawn's team, and that has like a similar skill set. And you know, with every generation having some iteration of a Pikachu clone. It is neat that they do incorporate it and make it relevant rather than something like a Pokemon that's just tacked in.
Yeah, this is the first time we see a party member that goes along with Ash have an electric rodent from that region. And it's nice that they actually pair the two and are like, oh, you're similar in both your typing, but also your like species or egg group, maybe. So you can have a connection there in how you learn to use your moves. With Pachirisu, of course, using the moves more for contest appeal rather than Pikachu's kind of battle approach, but they both have the same task of storing electricity to make that either as beautiful or as powerful as it needed to be.
Exactly.
All this training does attract some attention from someone named Kenny, who comes around the corner and is like, "Wow, it's DT," and Dawn immediately is like, "Oh, like someone knows that name." They have to be like,
Very dramatic about it.
yes. She's like, only one person can know that name, which we actually learn about this nickname later on.
Mhm.
But what do you think about this introduction of Kenny?
I think it works. I like it. I think, and we'll obviously discuss Kenny more throughout this episode because he's like kind of the focal point aside from Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think he's an interesting character in that I kind of see a bit of Gary and Ash sort of dynamic between them, but a little less antagonistic. Like he's still like he teases Dawn and makes fun of
Mm-hmm.
her and like has a nickname for her and everything, but it's not from a place of malice. It's not like he's trying to like he's trying to annoy her, sure.
Yeah.
And we see that a lot coming up, but he's not actively like trying to hurt her. And he does have good intentions with his friendship with Dawn, and they are friends in the end.
Yeah, like they even sit down at the table and start chatting about how they met, and Dawn kind of goes over like, "Oh yeah, Kenny left Twin Leaf Town a little bit before I did," and
Mhm.
then he actually gets well, he shows that his first Pokemon was a Piplup by introducing his main Pokemon, which is Prinplup.
Right. It shows that he's a bit ahead of Dawn,
Hmm.
uh, and it creates that dynamic between their starters that I always love to see, which is a starter and its rival being its evolved form. My favorite version of this is actually the Rowlet and Hal's Decidueye in the
Really?
Alola
Okay.
anime, way down the line. But I really like seeing that dynamic of like the base form starter and then it having a rivalry with its evolved form. I just think that's really fun.
Interesting. I am very much on the opposite side of that. I don't like that at all. To me, it feels very like, I don't know, very cheap maybe, because they're like, oh, obviously like you're gonna put something against its like older form, but also because you that younger form, like Piplup in this case, can evolve into that also. And to me, it's weird to compare the two, especially if you don't know if that one is going to stay as it is or if it's going to actually change and look exactly like its rival.
Right. Not to get too off topic, but just pulling back in Alola way in the future.
Hmm.
It actually that season does it twice. It does it actually does it multiple times.
Oh.
But the main two are Ash's what's it called, Litten,
Hmm.
and the Mass Royals Incineroar, and then the Decidueye Rowlet, and they're handled two different ways.
Okay.
One of them goes through the evolution storyline of it's trying to get stronger so it evolves, and the other one does the opposite where it doesn't evolve and it overcomes its opponent in spite of not evolving. So I liked how that one handled it because it did it both ways.
I see. Some variety there then.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's good. At least they didn't tread that same approach twice. And here, like, it is early, so I don't want to judge the relationship too hard. But we do see immediately how Piplup actually tries to be friendly with Primplup and it just gets slapped.
Yeah.
And Don's like, what was that for? And Kenny's like, I'm sorry, he does that because he's like Primplup is a very proud Pokemon, even in this Pokedex entry, and Kenny even points out it really only respects Kenny. We're just like,
Right.
geez, buddy. You might want to train that. Um he does apologize though, and that's where you kind of establish that rivalry with Piplup and Primplup uh, having a staring contest. And he actually says that Kenny's a Pokemon coordinator, so he's going to be competing in the Floaroma contest. And he watched Dawn at the Jubilife contest on TV. Um, and Dawn's actually surprised that Kenny became a coordinator, which isn't really explored much. But this is kind of, I don't know if this establishes that it's more common in Sinnoh for trainers to become coordinators after taking off from like their hometown and getting their starter Pokemon. Because now we're seeing two people from the same town that both decided to become coordinators and both got like their starter Pokemon in a way that is usually reserved for people going to compete in the Pokemon League.
Right. It does put a lot of weight on the coordinators. And I think just in general, what we've seen is there's been um, a lot more focus on the contest side of the region. I mean, we had the B Button League from the last episode I was on, which were all coordinators. And there are only two of them, but they were all coordinators. We had what was his name? The guy with the
Nando?
Badoo, yeah, Nando, who decided to do both. The only other serious gym challenger that we've seen aside from Ash is Paul.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't think we've seen anyone else actually even mention gym battles, really. Well, there was one person that like they ran into in the Krogan episode
Oh
who
yeah,
who had a Scizor, but not, that was very much a character of the day moment. But yeah, contests definitely seem a bit more prominent here, which I think is a cool touch that gives Sinnoh a bit more of a unique flavor. Um, and this is also interesting because Ash uses his Pokédex to check Primplup, and
Mhm.
this also happened in the Nando episode with Dawn. So I'm like, did they forget? Like, what? Why are you? Is it just because, like, oh, you want this to be the featured Primplup episode? Because in that past one with Nando, it only appears for like 10 seconds. But
Right.
it did kind of struck me as an odd choice for them to even place Primplup in that original episode if they're going to do it here as well in a more um, focused way.
I think back then it worked because it was like showing, especially for the audience, as the games had just come out, a few weeks into the game dropping, hopefully the player has gotten their starter to evolve once. So I
Okay.
think being able to see that from the audience perspective was kind of cool early on. It's just, the journeys move way slower in the anime.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that is it's more like to get people excited who have the game. They're like, oh, look, this is what your Piplup can evolve into. And this
Right.
one is more for like, oh, this is a character that we'll see going forward.
Mhm.
And Kenny also mentions that he lost to a powerful coordinator before that Jubilife contest, and that was none other than Zoe and her Glamio, actually. And that's where we find out that Zoe won her first ribbon from battling Kenny in an undisclosed city. Uh, but it already connects some of the coordinators that we've mentioned up to this point to each other, which is kind of neat.
Right. It feels like we're building up to something, and that we'll definitely see Zoe again. That's already been established.
Yeah.
But maybe someday we'll see all three of them together.
Yeah, definitely. It's very much building up the crew of contest coordinators that Don's going to compete against, but also befriend, which is nice.
Mhm.
And here, Kenny asks Ash. Kenny asks Ash. Oh boy, that's a mouthful. If he's competing in the Floaroma contest, and Ash says no, he's actually going for the Sinnoh League, and that's kind of confusing a bit for Kenny, but again, everyone's just remembering Ash competed in the Jubilife City contest and they assume he's a coordinator. Which I find kind
Right.
of funny that every time Ash is gonna have to explain that to people, it's like, no, it was Apop. He was like Apop wanted to compete.
It
And
wasn't me.
uh,
Especially because Ash was so rigid in the Nando episode about like only doing gym battles. It is interesting to see that brought up so much. And it does again bring into focus how big contests are in Sinnoh because they're televised.
yeah.
Everyone watches them and no one sees the gym battles. They're very
Ooh.
much private matches where it's like the trainer versus the gym leader and whoever happens to be watching like Paul or Don or Brock don't really see like any televised gym battles
That's a good point. And you know what's also interesting is that there's always stands for an audience in these
in the
gym
gyms.
battles, but
Yeah.
no one's ever there except Ash's friends.
Right.
So I'm like, is this a commentary on the region shifting away from like gym battles being the popular thing to do and Pokemon contests instead taking that place?
Yeah, and I think you sort of see that in other regions too with the contest or whatever their analog to the contest is. Like Kalos has a weird almost contest thing
Hmm.
um, that just pops up for no reason. But then you see in Journeys, for instance, those matches are pretty public with like the
Mm,
ex a what's the word? Can't think of the word. The match between Leon and Lance, for instance, is
right.
super televised, and it's like a whole big deal there. So it could just be region specific, but it does seem that these contests are just lending themselves more to being featured and televised.
Yeah, maybe it's more advertiser friendly because they're scheduled and there's going to be a lot of people there competing at once. Well, with gym battles, they can pretty much be any time, and no, it's like, well, whenever a challenger comes in, we'll have it, but we can't really put this into our like televised schedule, basically. Which
Exactly.
it just I don't know if that's looking too far into it, but I think that's kind of funny if that's what they're thinking of with how they portray these. Um, but again, going back to Kenny, he talks about how he just starts sharing a bunch of embarrassing stories of Dawn, and this is what leads to the great thumbnail of this episode, which is Pikachu, Brock, Ash, and Piplup just covering their mouths as they try not to laugh.
Oh man, it is. It's art. That screenshot is incredible, and there's several of them. There's the first one where they're all four, and then there's a second one where Piplup like comes up front and is like front and center, massive Piplup, just like trying not to laugh. It's great.
And Dawn just gets so mad about this. She's like, "All right, Kenny, I'm gonna battle you to just make you stop talking." But he actually says no and wants to go against Ash's Pikachu because he wants the experience of fighting something strong against his Prinplup, which is like, oh, okay. I think there's something more to this. The way that Kenny kind of looks at Ash earlier, but we'll get into that maybe later in the episode. But this leads to a battle between Kenny's Prinplup and Ash's Pikachu. And he starts off with a Thunderbolt, but Prinplup is able to actually deflect it using Metal Claw, which kind of shows the innovativeness or innovation that Pokemon Contest bring to battles in terms of deflecting a move that would otherwise be super effective against Prinplup and also making it look pretty.
Right. It does show, I guess, a level of command that both Kenny and Prinplup have.
Mm-hmm.
I think Brock's commentary here is great in that he says that Thunderbolt's the move that made Pikachu famous.
Yeah, that's a very specific line. I'm like, whoa, okay, bro.
But you're right. You can tell. I mean, anyone even who doesn't watch the Pokemon anime or had like maybe seen a few episodes as a kid, like what move does Pikachu know? And I guarantee you, most of them would say Thunderbolt or something similar. I mean, it has other attacks like Iron Tail, but you don't see that as much. They're not as apparent. I think that is the signature move, especially because it ends so many Team Rocket encounters.
Yeah, very true. I didn't even think about that, but that's definitely where we see it like the most consistently. And Pikachu actually uses its own kind of contest-inspired move with a spin dodge and is able to get around it, which I think is cool. And that immediately it's like, all right, we're gonna do some tricks of our own.
So Dawn makes a comment here. I don't remember where else Pikachu did this, but she says there's that move again.
Oh, they did that at the Orberg City Gym.
Oh, yeah. That's what it was.
And they actually copied that from Dawn when she was using it to fight the wild Aerodactyl in the episode before that gym battle, where Piplup and Baniri were using the spin to get around a Giga Impact, which is like, oh, yeah, that's good. Good dodge there.
It is cool to see that consistency and to see that Ash retains the knowledge of these moves.
Mm-hmm. The techniques just don't disappear.
Yeah, you don't just see them once and that's it, which is nice.
Yeah, there's a good sense of continuity there for sure. Prinplup then is falling towards the ground, so uses Bubble Beam to like make a cushion for itself. Which is like, wait, why didn't they just pop?
Which then explodes.
Yeah, it's very pretty. Which again calls into question the physics of moves here with the 3D animation. But it's pretty, so we'll let it slide. And during all this, Jessie is trying to get new Pokemon, I guess, to compete. So she sends out James and Meow to steal some for her, which seems
Right.
like a very presumptuous thing given that they've never succeeded at this.
Yeah, you'd
And
think they'd learn by now.
yeah, apparently they don't, as they send out the Viper to cover the field in haze and stuff Prinplup in a bag as they try to get away. But Staravia comes out, blows the smoke away. Then Piplup actually jumps in with a new move to clear out the way for everyone else to get to James and Meowth, who are trying to get away with the Prinplup. And that move is Whirlpool.
I think it's introduced well. I like how it almost looks like the evolution sort of visual
Animation?
effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Dawn doesn't even go there. She wonders if it's Bide. And Brock's like, no, it doesn't look like Bide. That looks different. And it's sort of like a double fake out. It's like you don't know where this is going. And this is a point, like remember in the Staravia episode, this is the sort of thing where it's like, of course, this is where it evolves. So I think they pulled it off well with a slight fake out there.
Yeah, especially because we just got Prinplup. I didn't even think about that, but that's totally believable for people. It's like, oh, we just met the evolution. Maybe now Piplup's inspired to evolve itself.
Right. But then we get Whirlpool. And what's weird about it to me is how massive it is.
Yes, that is the thing that surprises me every time. That this thing is just like 30 feet wide or something. It's like
Yeah,
this
it's
doesn't even seem
huge.
useful. Like you have to like chuck it and it like will cover everything, but it's so slow because it's so big.
Right. It's definitely flashy, and it's the sort of thing that I think Piplup needs for a contest.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of using in like battle or other situations, it doesn't seem super useful.
It's kind of impractical because
Yes.
it looks like it takes a good effort for Piplup to produce it. And this will come
Mhm.
into play much later on, but I get the like power that you're showing here, but at the same time, I don't know if you're thinking about it in a practical sense.
One sec. I want to see something about.
Yes, I was going to point that out. I'm pretty sure it only has like 15 power or something that's very low given its size.
Yeah, I'm seeing 35.
Yeah.
I think in other generations it might have been even lower.
That's what I might be thinking of then, because that's might be also what's portraying my or like filling my perspective on this is that I know Whirlpool isn't a powerful move,
Yeah.
but the way it's shown here, it's like it's almost like a hydro pump or something.
Right. And they do mention that it has that it's able to like sustain damage
Mm-hmm.
over time, like wrap or any of those other like long-term moves. But it only does like 1/16th damage, like 1/16th of the
Yeah,
target's max HP for a couple turns, like 2 to 5. So even that sustained damage isn't super great.
definitely. It's so that's kind of the thing that I wonder if it confuses people going into the games that are like, oh, I should teach my Piplup or my water types Whirlpool because given how it looks in the anime, it's a really strong move. And then they get to it and they're like, what? Hold up.
I did the same thing with when I finally got to playing Gen 5 when I got a Joltik that I later evolved into a Galvantula, and it had Electro Web, and in later
Yeah,
seasons of the anime, Pikachu gets Electro Web, and it's insanely powerful.
right.
And then I'm running this Garvantula that has like this terrible Electro Web. I'm like, what is this? Why do I even have this move?
It's like a signature move for it too, but it's so weak.
It's so bad.
Uh, yeah, that's kind of the pitfall of this anime is that knowing the game data for the new move that we get here, which is a big deal for Piplup, it's a little weird to think about it outside of this context. But here it's definitely shown to be kind of the new power move for Piplup, which kind of is needed because at this point it knows Bubble Beam, Bide, and Peck.
None of those are flashy.
Yeah, Bubble Beam's the closest thing, and it doesn't even know like a practical move like Pound or something that it learned normally. But I think it fits in the show. It's just a little weird in how it's portrayed, given that we know what it actually does in the games.
Agreed. I do want to touch real quickly on the fact that during all this, Ash's team notices that Jesse's gone, and they ask
Yes.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're confused on the answer. And I was thinking about this. So they're confused that they say Jesse's getting her nails done because Jessie doesn't perform as Jessie in contests. She has that disguise that she uses, but then there is the episode a few before this where she does compete as Jessie. And so it's like, and Ash's team is very aware that she competes.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
It's real confusing.
Maybe they're like, what do you mean? She always wears gloves, even when she competes.
Right.
Yeah, I did. That's yeah. Well, throughout this whole season, they never find out who she is.
Right, and that happens in like every contest arc.
Mhm.
Like she always competes under an alias and a disguise.
Well, in this season, actually, for Diamond and Pearl, she always uses the same one.
Right, and that happens in Kalos too. She has like
she
a
does?
consistent one.
Okay.
Yeah, that she competes throughout the region with. But it's just weird that she does that one contest as Jessie,
Mm-hmm.
the one with Apom.
Yeah, maybe they're
But
just like this is an outlier. Like
yeah,
they don't think about it too much as like something she wants to keep doing. Probably because they're like, oh, she just wants to compete for the fruit, which is one
right,
of the motivators, but it's also just Jessie wanting to do something flashy.
right.
But this brings us to the end of the episode, which actually cuts to the beginning of the contest. And Dawn is coming onto the stage for her turn and brings out Pachirisu, who has a nice performance coming out of the ball, but then accidentally falls over and rolls straight into the judges panel, which freaks it out and it starts running in circles.
Right, just completely loses control.
Yeah, and that's the cliffhanger for this. It's just like a panic Pachirisu in the middle of a performance, and Dawn does seem to have an idea of how to solve this, but that's where we actually leave off episode 26 of Diamond and Pearl. So we're going to jump right into the next one, but it's very much a continuous story here, leaving right as we left off. But what would you rate getting the pre-contest titters, episode 26 again?
Let's see. So I enjoyed it a lot. I liked the new character. I like Kenny a lot. I am not sure about all this Whirlpool stuff that we've already discussed.
Yeah.
There is a lot of setup in here that makes it work in the next episode. One of which we actually skipped over, but we can talk about it at the start of this next episode.
Sure.
And then, yeah, I think it was just fun and enjoyable. I want to give it like a sort of between a 6 and a 7 personally.
Yeah, that's where I would put it too.
I do think it mainly works because of the next episode though.
Right. It's a two-parter and it's very heavily reliant on like the next part because it is a setup for it, but all the like the climax of everything that is building up here is in a separate episode completely. So with that in mind, I would probably give it a 6.5. But yeah, let's move on to this one, which is episode 27, settling a not so old score. And we're taking off here with, again, Pachirisu just running around, and Don's like, I have an idea. But you said there was something we missed in the last one that you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, so in the opening of the last episode, after we had the Pachirisu and Pikachu training, Dawn ends the training by giving Pachirisu one of the Poffins.
Mm-hmm.
And then Piplup and Pachirisu both start begging for Poffins, and like they refuse to listen to her to Dawn until she gives them any more.
Right.
And then Pikachu just like zaps everyone and says enough of this.
Right. I think it's Pachirisu actually that's just like,
Oh yeah.
discharge everyone.
Yeah, but everyone gets zapped. But it shows how both of them get so fixated on these Poffins, and that Poffins, of course, continue to be relevant, which is, just a good thing to show for the Poffins as a new game mechanic.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us into the solution that Dawn thinks of here. As she pulls out a Poffin from her dress pocket, which to me is like the least believable part, that her dress has pockets.
Has pockets? Oh man.
But conveniently she has Poffins in there, and she throws one out and gets Pachirisu to focus on it and says, use Spark to go and catch it, and it does in a very cute way, which saves her performance, which I think is a really nice strategy on her part.
Yeah, and Pachirisu just goes like Super Saiyan here, just zaps his way over to it. It's great.
Yeah, and that's enough to collect and center Pachirisu to focus back on the performance. So Dawn has it use Discharge to create sparks around the stadium in a very fireworks fashion, I'd say, and then uses Sweet Kiss to shower everyone in these cute hearts, and again brings the performance to an elegant finish, which is a nice save.
Yeah, I like this use of like all of Dawn's time being important. Like, sure, she like is shaky at the beginning, but she's able to save it and bring it back.
Yeah,
I think it's done well.
It's definitely showing that she's effective at turning around quickly and improvising, to make the most of it, because she knows like, oh, if I don't get through here, I'm not going to make it to the next round.
Right.
And then we get to some other performances with Jessie again disguised as Jesselina using her Seviper, and then Dawn is just kind of resting in the back as everyone else watches the performance, including Kenny. And Kenny actually remarks that Jesselina is actually really good.
Right. And the crowd responds very, very positively to her. She's not bad by any means at this contest stuff.
It's nice to see that she actually has a knack for it, and
yeah,
does some things that surprise people. I think both viewers and people in the show by having Seviper wrap around her and kind of involving herself in these performances for moves that like would otherwise kind of be hard to show off their appeal if it was just the Pokemon by itself.
Yeah, and just showcasing those Pokemon, because poison type kind of gets like the short end of the stick a lot. People don't really think about it. It doesn't really perform well competitively. So it is nice to see it in a more positive context, and that Jessie excels with her poison types.
Yeah, that's another good point as well. You show the more positive light on a type that's probably a little more villainized and just not used as much. And then we get to Kenny's appeal, where he sends out an Alakazam.
Who are you trading with, Kenny?
I'm like, Kenny, we just passed the first gym. What happened here?
How did you get this?
Yeah, I'm like, this is very random. I don't understand why he has this. It's like, a very powerful Pokemon, not a Sinnoh Pokemon, which I thought would kind of be the feature here. Though we do see Zoe use like Mr. Viz, to be fair. Um, but it's also like a third stage evolution, which I think is the first time we've seen any main trainer have that so far in this season.
Right. It's just like doesn't match the power curve that everyone else has been on, and even that
Yeah,
Kenny has been on because he still has his Prinplup.
I think Kenny's hacking. That's the only thing I
He
can
has
think
a
of here.
second DS to trade with. He's just self
uh,
trading. That's what it is. He
he
got it
has
up to
two
Kadabra.
Pokedexes to
Yeah.
trade with himself.
This guy. I don't. It's just so out of left field.
Yeah, I'm like, maybe if you showed it before or something, but like, I'm like, why? Why does he have this? He does lead into the psychic slash magician appeal with this, as he
Mhm.
uses light screen to create a box around it before using shadow ball to destroy the light screen and then reappear using teleport, which is actually kind of a cool idea.
Right.
That very much is like, oh, how did the magician escape this like death trap kind of.
Right. It's very flashy. It
Mm-hmm.
does very much of a magician imagery, which is neat,
Yes, that's a good word for it. Yeah.
especially given the line's Japanese names, which are all based on famous magicians.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mhm. Uh, well, partially famous. There's the whole Uri Geller
Right.
nonsense with
Yuri
Kadabra.
Geller. I
Um,
remember that, but I didn't know about the other ones being also based on that in Japanese.
I want to say it's Alakazam. I know it's one of them. I think it's Alakazam that's named after Houdini.
That would make sense. Yeah.
I do like that they leaned into that.
Yeah, it's like good to show a creative approach to it that has a specific theme in mind. And this also is like it had me thinking, if he uses this in battle, he's gonna destroy some people. Because
Right.
Alakazam is such a powerful Pokemon.
And I think it's weird that this shows up because he made such a big deal in the episode before, literally yesterday for them,
Hmm.
where he wanted Prinplup to battle Pikachu because it was so strong. And he wanted
Yeah,
to like train up and get stronger and get his Pokemon stronger. And then he's out here with an Alakazam.
like, dude, what are you talking about?
You're strong enough, buddy. Like, calm down.
You know, okay, so to be fair, you can evolve Kadabra into Alakazam pretty much as soon as you get it, which is
Right.
below level 20. That's my headcanon. But anyway, we move on to the next round where Jesselina, Dawn, and Kenny all go to,
Mhm.
and we get a match between Jesselina and Dawn, with Piplup being on Dawn's side and Dustox being on her side. And it goes really well for Dawn, actually.
Yeah, she handles it well. I like how she uses Whirlwind against Dustox with the like flip and peck combo, being able to like roll and literally sparkle with the Whirlwind. I think that's
Yeah, we
really
get
cool.
another version of the spin approach to
Mhm.
actually even boost Piplup's momentum, which is something we haven't seen before with that spin meta, I guess.
Spin meta is overpowered for contest.
Yeah. Ash and Dawn are the early adopters of it. And then we get into a tough situation where Dustox is going in for Poison Sting and Psybeam, and all Piplup can really do is dodge, which is starting to wear down on Dawn's points because it's being overpowered. Which I think is kind of interesting because usually if a Pokemon dodges the the attacker actually loses points. But I guess it wasn't being dodged flashy enough in this case, and was just kind of not showing much appeal on Piplup's part.
Right. Contest battles in general just confuse me. And it's mostly because of what happens next, which is that Dawn actually or Piplup actually knocks out Dustox. And the fact, like, sure, if your Pokemon gets knocked out, of course it can't battle. But like, what's to prevent a coordinator, and Ash even tries this in the Jubilife contest, from just going all out and just knocking them out and ending it? Like, it just seems like a weird solution.
Yeah, it's probably generally harder to knock out the other Pokemon.
That's
Like,
true.
it can take a while, and like sometimes, yeah, it can be like, oh, it's 3 moves and it's out. But these are trainers that focus mostly on appeal, and that probably includes things like evasion. So I'm assuming that they have a good way of countering these moves that like might be really flashy for their opponent, but they can turn them against them, like we see with Whirlwind.
Right.
But yeah, good point. Still, it is kind of arbitrary as at certain points where we see things that like in one case mean they lose points, in the other case it means the opponent loses points. So totally agree with you there. That's not always the most consistent.
Hey, it's in line with the games.
Yeah, they're trying to portray the RNG here. Very true. Oh, that's funny. And then with Dawn's win out of the way, we get to the next round where Kenny also makes it to, and it's the finals where we get to see Primplup versus Piplup.
Yeah, so this is what the episode's all been leading up to, and the
Mhm.
previous episode, it is that sort of final matchup for this bit between the two evolutions. So it's the outcome is predictable, I will say.
Mhm.
But I think it does everything that we've seen in the past 30 minutes of anime has paid off.
Yes, I definitely agree there. There's a lot of payoff here that makes me relieved it was a two-part episode and it wasn't kind of just stuffed into one.
Yes.
Because it shows a little more importance of Kenny's character and gives enough breathing room for Piplup to learn this move without it feeling a little random and awkward. Which I think it would be if it were just one episode.
Definitely.
And here it's again the battle of two water types, where not a lot of moves that the other opponent is going to use on each other will be super effective.
Right. It's type advantage again just doesn't really matter. Kenny keeps bringing it up, but it is just focused on the moves itself rather than like how effective they are.
Right. Like at some point, Piplup tries using Bithe, and Kenny undercuts this by having Primplup use Drill Peck with Piplup on its beak, and it just keeps spinning it around, which means Dawn's losing points because it's literally getting penguin handled in this point.
Right. I will say this wouldn't be an episode with me talking about it if I didn't bring up the music.
Yeah.
We're brought out to some very dramatic music for the
Yes.
first half of this battle, and it's the Reggie theme.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's the Reggie Rock, Registeel Regice theme. They got rid of some of like the digital like synth sound. It's there at the beginning, but they like cleaned it up a bit so it's more just the Hoenn trumpets blaring. But yeah, they do that, and I think it works here. It's not like that one time where they bring in the
God.
Groudon music for a Team Rocket battle.
Yeah.
I think it's fitting because we've had so much build up and it is dramatic.
I'm honestly trying to think if the Sinnoh anime is supported a lot by its musical choices. Because they always seem to be very dramatic and intense, and usually in a good way, but I wonder if that's part of my bias in like liking a lot of these and just kind of seeing them as more mature or high stakes episodes, is that they just use they use music that just
Legendary
takes it to
themes.
the next level. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, interesting piece of trivia there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it does add a lot, especially to the drama of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is weird to me that there's still, I guess it's because of the movies that were coming out around this time, but they're still using Gen 3
They
legendary
are.
themes,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I would think they would start phasing it into Gen 4 music.
Yeah, maybe they just had some delay on getting that music still. Um,
Yeah. And maybe they just don't want to introduce like the
mm,
Dialga Palkia music until it's time.
that's probably the better take, I'd say, because it makes sense for them to save that music for the introduction of these legendary
Mhm.
characters that we get later on.
Right.
But going back to the battle, this is where we see Piplup use Whirlpool, and then it becomes a like surfing battle as they both kind of swim around the whirlpool in a very, very like anime-esque way. Um,
Right. Well, there's two whirlpools.
oh, there
So
are? Okay.
yeah, so it uses it once uh, to counter a Metal Claw, and then Prinplup immediately breaks it
Mm-hmm.
using Bubble Beam, and then we get that whole bit with the mist,
Right. And
which
it just,
has the strangest commentary from Marianne, the contest MC, where she says, "Talk about thick." Like,
oh my
okay,
god.
okay, thanks,
Mary
Marianne.
Ann.
Please.
She's doing it for the
Uh,
ratings.
right. And then after that, when the mist, well, Prinplup does that sort of ambush through the mist, and then Piplup does the whirlpool again. And Kenny, as great as he is throughout the rest of the episode, kinda is grating to me here. In that he responds to literally every move Don makes with like, really, that's not gonna be strong enough.
Yeah, it's
And
very
it's
like antagonistic for no reason.
and so repetitive.
Hmm. It's the same beat over and over of him, like down, like looking down at Dodge. We're just like, she's your childhood friend, dude. Like, what?
And especially because they make such a big deal throughout this contest battle of showing how evenly matched the two are. You would
Hmm.
think he wouldn't be so arrogant about it.
Yeah, it's a weird portrayal for him, and I'm curious at why it's less consistent here between between this episode and the last one.
Mhm.
But I guess it's mostly to show Dawn being able to overcome this and like gives him kind of satisfaction. But to me, it's a little forced still.
I agree.
But it does end with a Primplup versus Primplup Metalclaw versus a Piplup Peck, and then they both lose points. But after a double bubble beam, it shows that time has run out and Dawn wins by just a small point difference.
Mhm.
And she's thrilled. She goes up and receives her first contest ribbon and then calls her mom about it to show her the ribbon. Even though it's also brought up that she's like, I promised I wouldn't call you after every contest. But she's like, no, it's fine.
Right.
This one's okay.
Right. I mean, her relationship with her mom is important, but I do also like that her mom says, one is great, but you also need to just keep
Mm,
working and keep improving and build up your team.
yeah,
So I do like that. It's like celebrate the victory now, but like there's still a lot to come.
exactly. Yeah, like this is just the beginning for you. Like you got a lot ahead of you. You're like 1/5 of the way through here.
Right.
And he does tease her with DD, the
Yeah.
nickname that came up in the beginning of last episode. Ash tries to ask what it means, but Don's like, nope, you're not getting that from me.
Yeah, and we get the like cut off there where the narrator just like starts talking over their arguing.
Yeah.
I will say I liked a bunch of the small asides between Dawn and Kenny that we got throughout this episode.
Hmm.
It feels like there's more depth there, and there was one that really stuck out to me which was where Dawn was like, "I didn't know you were into contests," and
Yeah.
Kenny acts like kind of disappointed. He's like, "You just never noticed," and
See,
she's very confused by it.
yeah, I'm like, there's a few things here where I'm like, is he lying? Is he like, I got into contest later and doesn't want to share for some reason? But I think your interpretation might be a little more on the nose, knowing what we see Kenny do later on this season.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is yet, so
Okay.
we'll see.
What is your interpretation of this kind of these little side conversations then, not knowing what's ahead?
I know there's more to him. I don't
Okay.
honestly know what that could be. There has to be more, obviously, with the name with Dee Dee.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because of how it's cut off at the end of Ash trying to figure that out. I I'm not sure. I feel like Kenny might be into Dawn. I feel like that's actually probably it,
Mm-hmm.
especially with how flustered he gets when he sees her in the dress. Um, and that he might be doing this all to like impress her. And
Mm.
and I say that because he also makes a big deal about when he saw her on TV for the Jubilife contest that he knew that she would be going to Floaroma Town and that's why he decided to come there. So it does
Oh
seem like
wow. Okay. I didn't even think about that
yeah.
part.
And she kind of takes a pause there. That conversation happens between the like right before the finals, I believe.
Right, right.
Um and
You're
she
putting a
kind of
lot
takes a
of pieces
pause there.
together here, which I think is really fascinating.
So I think that's probably where like that's my prediction on where it's going.
Sure.
Uh I don't know though, and I am interested to see Kenny come back in more contests. Hopefully, see Zoe come back and maybe see all three of them together. I think that would be really cool to see.
Yeah, totally. I would love to hear Zoe's insight on their relationship because she can be very blunt at times, and I'd love to
Yes,
hear what her take is on what's going on there.
right. But I don't think we're going to see contests for a while. Maybe
Yeah,
uh,
I'm trying to remember here. I think we don't get another one.
this season.
We get one more this season.
Okay.
Um,
Because I know next is
and
Eterna and or not, yeah, Eterna.
yeah, we
Like
get
it's the
another gym battle for Ash, and then one more contest. But we are getting close to the end. We're halfway through, but a lot of the main events are starting to kind of come together here.
right.
Um, and it's going to be interesting. But I think this season actually does a great job of setting up so many things that we see in future seasons. Um, so if you're ahead here, like it does, it I will say if you're watching this for the first time, it can seem kind of slow, but
Hmm.
it's a lot of good pacing in these character moments and these relationship building episodes, which pay off really nicely at the end.
Yeah, we're only like what 4 or 5 towns in
Mhm.
to the Sinnoh region, so we're still very early on. Only one gym, but I think it works. I like the character moments that we get. I like that it's not just uh, our trio, our main trio, but we also
Yep.
have these recurring characters such as Zoe and Paul and Kenny.
Mhm.
That like this cast is growing, and we're gonna see more of these characters as well.
Yeah, it's a very strong supporting cast, which I think really identifies Sinnoh and the Diamond and Pearl anime specifically. Because just looking back at Dawn, or looking back at May in the Hoenn region with the advanced saga or the advanced series of the anime, um, she kind of stumbles a lot into contests. Like there's
Mhm.
several times where I can remember her like running late to register for a contest, and it's like like we're gonna make it, we might not make it, like it's she's not prepared at all. And here it's like, oh, I got my road planned to go compete in contests, and she's still like kind of learning which when each one's happening, but it's nowhere near as disorganized as May's was. And there's so many more characters that come back here versus in Hoenn where she'll meet
It's all one off.
someone, yeah, and it's just character of the day, and we'll like maybe get a flashback, but that's it.
I will say when we were first starting the season, like I don't know, or like up to my first episode, I wasn't a huge fan of Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I think this was just them transitioning, but it felt like a lot of the show in general was at first like a continuation or clone of Advanced. And I think it's grown out of that, and I think Dawn has grown out of that. And she's very much like a different character than May, which I didn't feel at first.
I can totally see that, yeah. Especially as we go further along, there it feels very much like they were kind of like putting their toe in the water with what things they could do with her,
Right.
and also just trying to like understand who this character is, because so much of the early episodes are her like checking her Pokédex and asking Brock and Ash questions, and that's it.
Right.
So,
And now she's starting to come into her own
mhm.
and like learn things on her own. Her Pokemon are obviously getting stronger. And she does have these more solid goals that I don't think
Mhm.
May ever really like. Well, she May got there eventually, but it feels
Right.
like Dawn just knows her trajectory a lot more.
Yes, and she also even has moments where she knows stuff that Ash and Brock don't, like
Yeah,
about the Poketch, and also in the episodes before this one about Poffins, um, and just like other things like that that make sense for her to know, being the daughter of a Pokemon coordinator.
exactly.
So, any last thoughts on episode 27, settling a not so old score?
I really enjoyed this one. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorites. I like how this is Dawn's first contest win, and it feels
Mm,
earned. It
yeah.
feels very earned. It doesn't feel like, oh, I just like stumbled through and made it. Like the last 26 episodes with Dawn have been building to this.
Yeah.
And it is kind of basic in story in that she lost the first one and she's gonna do better the second time and then she wins it. But I think it works. I think making this contest win against Kenny, this new character, rather than bringing back Zoe, was good.
Mm-hmm.
I do know why they didn't bring back Zoe, and it's discussed later. I do know that part. Um, I think, yeah, just building that and then jumping straight from this last episode uh, that was focused on introducing Kenny and Primplup. I think everything that was set up there pays off here, and that we've gotten just a lot of payoff in general from Dawn's journey.
Totally. Yeah. And it's also nice that they establish that there's some history between her and Kenny. It's not
Yes.
a random new character, though technically is, but there's something there that is more satisfying to watch than just a random new rival for her that she has no relationship to prior to this.
Right. I know I bring up later series a lot, but there's a certain rival that Ash gets in Kalos that feels exactly like that, where he doesn't show up until the final season
Oh, I
and
think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
suddenly is a huge deal and
Like,
is
what?
like
Where did you come
Ash's
from?
Ash's main rival, and the character's introduced in a like set of like 3 special episodes,
Oh,
like not even
man.
in the main series. and it just comes out of nowhere and feels so unearned. Whereas even though we're just meeting Kenny for the first time, it does feel like there's more there, there's more to explore, and it's not just this character that we're gonna see once and that's it.
Right. It's very much the foundation for their relationship going forward as well. Where like you can maybe with other rivals or like other seasons, it's very much like, oh, this is the arc. The arc is you meet this person and you beat them. But this one, you can tell that there's going to be more to it. This isn't the end of it, which is really nice because it makes you look forward to seeing this character again. And not just like, oh, you're the person who had this like whirlpool arc with Piplup, and that's all you're known for.
Right. And what I like about the contest is that in order to reach, the finals for the contests, you have to win other ribbons. And so it's implied that whoever Dawn meets at these finals, provided she gets there, will also be winning these contests and will also be skilled. And so it shows that, maybe Kenny could be one of those people. Maybe Zoe is going to be one of those people. And so you're kind of rooting for them as well.
Yeah.
It's different from, say, Paul, where it's more antagonistic and you're like, well, I kind of hope Paul doesn't win this battle and then Ash doesn't win this gym battle and then I hope Ash does. It's like you're kind of rooting for everyone.
Right. Like you don't want someone in particular to lose, and you like one person winning here actually affects the other person because there's only one ribbon. And I think that's the kind of balance that is good with the rivals that we see in Dawn's roster, or her rogues gallery, you might say. Because there's one particular rival with May, which I keep bringing up, but he sucks. Like, he is a jerk all the way through and tries to sabotage May all the way.
The Cacturn guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Harley.
Harley, yeah, he's awful.
Like, there's no reasonable person rooting for that guy.
No.
And he becomes her main antagonist, which is like fine, but she falls for it so often that it's just annoying to watch. While here, it's not nearly as forced of a conflict, because it doesn't have to be a conflict of like, oh, someone's trying to cheat. It's more like someone is trying to win the same thing you are.
Right. And I think, right now they're setting up for Zoe to be that sort of main contest rival so far. Because she's beaten both of them.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that having that and having them be like fair wins, and also having Zoe be nice to them, like she's not, they both speak very highly of her when they talk about her. And it's not like Harley where it's like everyone gets annoyed when they see him.
They're all like, go away.
No one wants you here.
Yeah, definitely a really nice dynamic that shows the difference between Ash and Dawn's journeys and the factors that go into contest versus gym battles.
Exactly.
But yeah, overall, what would you rate this episode?
I want to put this one at an 8, maybe even higher.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. Again, I loved the payoff. It was dramatic, but not overly so. And I just think that it sort of closes out Dawn's first arc, and it does so in a way that feels earned. It feels like we deserve this, and Dawn deserves this.
Yeah, definitely. I will settle on a 7.5, mostly because Kenny's portrayal does kind of fall apart here, and is maybe the weakest part of this episode. But that's saying a lot given how many interactions and how much action we get here, from the PO round and the battle round being so strong. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. So, JM, thanks for coming on and talking about this epic first arc closure for Dawn.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. Great episodes. So
Definitely,
looking
yeah. If
forward.
you're listening to this podcast and you haven't watched it, go ahead and do that. You can actually go to Pokemon.com and click on Pokemon TV to see this season at the time of this recording. So if it's not there in the future, sorry, but it might be come back later because they're known to rotate through these seasons there. So follow along with
Yeah.
us if you aren't already.
I will say it looks like rotations might be happening soon because they've brought in season 11 onto
Yes,
Pokemon TV.
Diamond and
So
Pearl, uh, That's not Galactic Battle. Shoot, what's it called?
I don't know. I just know it is season 11.
Oh man, hold up. Let me check this real quick. Uh, Battle Dimension,
Oh, yes, okay.
which is cool.
So
Cool season name.
yeah, but just for anyone who might be listening,
Mhm.
know that things might start to rotate out soon. They'll probably add a couple more seasons of Diamond and Pearl, Sinnoh in general before they get rid of season 10.
Yeah, they've been doing a really weird thing where they're featuring some regions that come after Sinnoh for a little bit, and then like they last less time than the Sinnoh
So,
seasons. Like they did that with I think Kalos, or was it Kalos? And now they did
yeah,
Unova. And I'm like, what's happening here? Like, why are you going through all these seasons when Diamond and Pearl's like the main one you have? But
right.
hopefully that just means they're going to be up for a while as we get closer to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl coming out later.
Hopefully, yeah.
But until next time, feel free to subscribe, leave any comments down below about what you thought about these episodes, how John's characters go in so far, and any other thoughts or questions that we might take a look at in a future episode with JM. So until next time, I've been William,
I've been JM.
and we'll see you in Sinnoh. Bye!
See ya.